We're getting new reports about the conditions at migrant shelters, and they're not good. Inspectors at a facility in El Paso found severe overcrowding and unsanitary conditions. The picture on your screen shows 76 detainees packed into a cell designed for 12 people. Also limited access to showers and clean clothing and unsanitary conditions. Plus, since the government has run out of room, an Army base with a notorious history will now begin housing migrants. Fort Sill in Oklahoma was once used as an internment camp for Japanese Americans during World War II. Now immigrants from South and Central America will be kept there. Erika Andiola joins me now. Erika is a dreamer. She's the Chief Advocacy Officer for the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, or Raices. Erika, I know a number of people you work with at Raices have been inside some of these detention centers where migrants are being held. We're hearing a lot of disturbing reports about conditions in the facilities, not just overcrowding, but also the way that migrants are being treated and even where they're being confined, outdoors in some cases, in cold rooms in others. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible, terrible situation that is happening at the border right now. We are really concerned because we actually have seen the conditions have been really bad for a really long time. A lot of our clients, or basically Raices, has been representing migrants for a really long time. We were a really big part of reuniting children with their families when all the family separation started under the Trump administration. And so we have seen a lot of reports from families and individuals who are coming through the border of being held by Border Patrol in really, really cold cells that sometimes migrants call hieleras or ice boxes for days or weeks. Many times they get put into this place called Las Perreras, or the dog kennels, which basically, like, a lot of people have seen them on pictures. They're this really big cages where they have placed either individuals, even children, or families. And so the conditions are getting even worse. A lot of our people we're representing are coming out super, super sick with the flu, with many other conditions that they didn't have before. And unfortunately, we have had more, at least that we know, we have about 6 children who have already died in these conditions. And, I would say that perhaps there's been more deaths that we don't really know about.
And on top of those deaths, including the children you were just referencing, we're also just today getting reports of people in quarantine for exposure to mumps or chicken pox. I'm wondering, is your sense that ICE is using detainee health care in a punitive way? How would you describe their approach to the health care of detainees?
They're not taking care of them. I mean, the problem is that, this is actually even before they get to transfer to ICE at Border Patrol stations. This is Border Patrol as an agency. They're not even supposed to hold people for more than 72 hours, and they are holding people for a lot longer than that in these really, really terrible conditions. And like I said, it's either in this, really cold jail cells, or in dog kennels, as they call them, or outside, in tent cities. I mean, right now they have a vast, variety of different places where they are putting people, and unfortunately they're not actually giving them the medical attention that they need. Just one of the young people we represented in not too long ago was transferred from one place to the other for about 8 days. Again, terrible conditions. He told them that he was actually really sick. He wasn't given food for the entire time. He lost 15 pounds in less than 8 days. He was already a small, a thin child. And so this is just one story of many of people who do tell Border Patrol agents, I'm sick, I don't feel good. And they're given Tylenol, they're given just medicine that doesn't treat any of their conditions or any of the symptoms that they have. And so we end up with, flu outbreaks. We end up with just, more and more people, including babies and children, also being sick. And so something's got to change. And unfortunately, this administration is using military tactics in many ways to try to, address the situation. But that's just, it's not working. People are still coming and seeking asylum.
And the fact of that is bad enough. What it's doing to the people that are being held there is bad enough. But then comes the question of why. And some have argued, well, the system is so overloaded. That's why you have overcrowding. That's why you have bad health care. Others are wondering if that's to be punitive, to penalize those people for doing what they're doing and to try to send a message to others not to follow them. Where do you come down on that?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure, and we keep saying this in Raices, that seeking asylum is legal. This is a legal channel, and the problem is that the administration is trying to use military tactics on people who are turning themselves into a border patrol agent. They're not, majority of these folks are not actually crossing the border, without any supervision. They are turning themselves into officers. And so if we are seeing that this is the case, for me is one, it is legal for them to do that. They're asking for a chance, they're asking for asylum. Now we got to figure out a way to, to be able to process all those folks. And also, look at the big picture. There is definitely terrible conditions and terrible things happening in Central America and other countries that we haven't really looked into. And so we can't just cover the sun with one finger, as we would say in Spanish. You can't just do that. You have to figure out what are the different solutions that can happen that are actually humane. And right now, the only solutions that they can think of, meaning the Trump administration, is these tactics that are actually killing children. They're caging children. They're putting families into situations that none of us would ever be, wanting to. I would never want to be in that situation, and I'm pretty sure any American would not want to ever be in that situation. And so, at this point, we have to figure out more humane solutions. And it's just, that's not what is happening right now, and it needs to change.
Yeah, it certainly feels like a stain upon our nation. I think a lot of our viewers might be surprised to hear that the federal government is now prosecuting Americans for assisting. I'm sure you've heard the story of the high school teacher in Arizona, Scott Warren, who faced trial for helping migrants in the desert. He left food and water, and he claims he was helping them with their sense of the direction. The government says he was illegally concealing them. How important is that help, that humanitarian help, to save migrant lives once they cross? And what does it say to you that the U.S. government is now prosecuting Americans just for being compassionate towards these migrants?
What it says to me is that they're not seeing these folks as human beings. And that is the problem. If we start seeing people as less than human, then we're gonna start doing this kind of thing, persecuting people for giving water to someone, putting, kids in these conditions, and having families endure so much pain for seeking a better life. And so to me, we have to start with recognizing that every person who's coming into this country to seek asylum is a human being who needs at least their basic needs met, which is, again, it's water, it's in many ways medical attention, is making sure that they do have at least the sufficient food to be able to survive as they are turning themselves into border patrol, and many other needs that they have. And to us, it's unfortunately the opposite is happening, that this administration has created a narrative, and they have created policies that tell us over and over again that they see these folks as less than human, and we need to change that.
Finally, Erika, the U.S. government is pushing Mexico to have asylum seekers remain in Mexico while their cases are being processed. They say it's a humanitarian necessity. Given your experience, the experience of Raices, will that be a better process for migrants?
Absolutely not. We are pushing people to sleep in the streets of Mexico, in some of the most dangerous cities in the country. We are putting people in harm, and all of that, so this administration can say that they're doing something about it. But again, they are putting people in a lot of harm. And to us, all of these policies, and actually just recently was announced, it's been on the news that they're now trying to also work with Guatemala to keep people there. And there's a reason why people are running away from those countries. There's so much happening there. We have to take a look, step back and take a look at what is happening and what we can do to resolve this as a holistic problem, not just, continuing to put this kinds of putting people in this kinds of conditions. And so, some of our clients actually, for Raices, have stayed in Mexico for a really long time since this, was announced, this policy was put into place. And they have reported there's just, it's so dangerous for them to be there. And just, it's common sense. If people are pushed to stay in another country when they're trying to seek entry, for safety, and they stay, outside of the country, not necessarily knowing what to do, homeless in many ways, also sick in many ways, just, not being able to have the safety that they need and that they're looking for. And so we are working really hard to make sure that we undo this program that's called the Remain in Mexico. Because again, it is killing people. It is getting people to be in really, really harmful situations.
Erika Andiola is the Chief Advocacy Officer for Raices. That's the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services. Erika, thank you for your efforts. Thanks for a few minutes.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, for years, the key to any peace plan in the Middle East has been a two-state solution: Israel alongside a Palestinian nation. But the coming plan from Jared Kushner may push that proposal aside. We'll get reaction, concerns, and the unanswered questions from the moderate pro-Israel group J Street next.